are here on stage. Very happy to be here tonight. And what I'm calling Talk Around the Diamond with our Major League Baseball pitching alumni, Frank DiPino and Mark Lukasiewicz, myself, Dan Tortora, aka DT. Happy to be here at the Wildcat Sports Pub. We are here every single month, typically up on this stage with West Genesee, and we've done a lot of baseball specials here, done a lot of different things here at the Wildcat, some fantasy football, a lot of great things over the last 6.5 years, and I'm honored and privileged to have these two gentlemen here with me for the first time ever on stage. So, Frank, Mark, how are you?
Great, good to be here, Dan.
Happy to have you here. We're here, of course, on Facebook.com and YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT, so we're live worldwide. There are baseball fans all over the world. First words to them, Frank, what do you want to say to baseball fans all over?
Just keep cheering for baseball. Keep it the number one sport.
Do you still think it's the number one pastime? I mean, do you still get a sense of that?
Oh, I don't know. It's close. Them and the, football, obviously, but you got college football and you got the NFL, so that's a big step right there.
Mark, what about you? Do you still think baseball has first place, or did football take it?
Well, I think it depends on the season. I mean, everybody's into football right now, but it's kind of a weird time of the year. But I think baseball is always going to be right up there. But a lot of other sports now are getting very popular. Soccer, lacrosse is getting huge. So you're seeing a lot of different sports starting to get very popular nowadays with kids.
So we have Major League Baseball royalty, for me, in my opinion, up here with connections to Central New York. Congratulations on a little thing called the World Series, and also being honored in the recent hall here that we have in the community. So you and I talked a few weeks ago. What is it like for you, Mark, to know that forever in history that World Series will ring true?
Well, obviously it was amazing, and I was very fortunate to be a part of it. But you really look at that season, nobody expected the Angels to even make the playoffs. We had a bunch of really not high-profile players. We had some really good players like Tim Sam and Garrett Anderson, but we didn't have any of the big, high-dollar players like the Yankees did and the Dodgers and the Athletics. So nobody really expected us to do anything. So I think just in that fact alone, we really surprised so many people, not only making it to the playoffs, but going on eventually to winning the World Series.
Frank, for you, in your history in the majors, you've had a lot of incredible stories. We will get to those. What moment rings true with you the most of your history?
The moment I really, a lot of people ask me that all the time, is what particular moment sticks out in your mind? Well, there's a lot of them. Just being in uniform in a Major League Stadium that was a major moment. That was a dream come true, and obviously, and that was our dream come true, like with Mark too. You play for it. When you get there, everything seems big. And when you're out there giving it your all, and you're all part of the greatest game to us, of course, but I really can't. The biggest moment, people ask me that, what was your greatest moment? And I always say the same thing. I say, when I look up in the stands and I see my mom and dad sitting there watching me pitch, I said, that's the best moment of my life right there. They love baseball more than I did. And we listened to baseball I was a kid growing up. We always listened to the Chiefs games. And that's all we heard. And just to see them smile, and I proved to Dad that I did make them happy and proud of me about something. So that was a huge deal for me. That was hard to do.
So, your first, Frank, I'll stay with you on this. Your first baseball memory. Can you go back and pinpoint your first kind of moment with the game?
At the major league level?
No, I want to go back to being a kid. We were talking about it off the air, like the Sandlot days, so to speak. But
yeah.
Your first memory of baseball.
Oh boy, that was 7, 8 years old when we first started playing right in our neighborhood. We had a little field made up in the backyard of a business down in Orchard Village in New York, and those are my first memories of baseball itself. And that's where I got the interest. And you know, everybody said, well, you got to pitch because you throw so hard, and I'm left-handed. I said, okay. So I did. That was all. That's where it all started.
Did you always want, when you fell in love with baseball, did you always want to be a pitcher? Or you always did?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And, you know, and of course everybody asked me growing up is, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to play in the major league. And they're all saying, you know, obviously they all doubted me. You can't do that. I was small compared to everybody else, but I could throw the ball through a brick wall. I mean, I had a good arm, and I never gave up. People always said, you know, you'll never make it. And I said, I don't care what you say. I'm just going to keep playing, and hopefully I can. And when, you know, the opportunities came to play for teams, I gave it everything I got, and everybody could tell that. When I graduated from high school, I was 5'6".
Yeah.
And everybody looked at me like, where are you going? And then the next year I grew 5 inches. And then I said, okay, now maybe I got a better control of this.
Yeah.
So that was it.
Well, I believe I also graduated high school at 5'6", and I ended at 5'8". So, Mark, for you, do you have that first memory of baseball that you can bring up in your life?
Not a specific moment, but I just knew ever since I was a little kid, I had a passion for the game. Probably at 6 or 7, I fell in love with the sport. So, and it's kind of all I wanted to do ever since I was a little kid was to play baseball. And as I got older, I wanted to work at it. And then obviously my goal was to play in the big leagues. But, you know, I always tell people all the time, you gotta love what you do, and whatever it is, whether you want to play baseball or be a doctor or whatever you want to be, you gotta love what you do and put the time and effort to succeed and work at the craft.
You know, and like you said, do what you love what you do. I was having a conversation earlier today. I don't feel like, I mean, this will be in November my 19th year broadcasting, and I've owned my company for over 10 years as of this past July. I don't feel like I go to work. Now, you get tired, your body needs to be like a car, oiled every few months, you know, and you kind of have to remember to plug yourself in like a phone, but you don't feel like you're working. There's so many things to talk about in this conversation from the Wildcat Sports Pub in this very special wake-up call with Dan Tortora, which we're calling Talk Around the Diamond. So I love the fact that you both knew at a young age what you wanted to do and you didn't let anybody stop you. So many pieces to get to, but I want to stick with that for a moment. If for those that are watching and those that are here, what you would want to say, Mark, to not just baseball players, but to somebody out there who has been told by their mom, their dad, their sibling, their girlfriend or boyfriend, the person down the street, their boss, hey, you're never going to make it doing X, whatever X is. What would you say to that person?
Well, I would say you're going to get a lot of people that doubt you throughout your life. I've had a lot of people doubt me in my life. I'm sure Frank has as well. But if you really love something and you have a passion for it, don't take no for an answer and work your butt off. And then one day, eventually, you're going to get your opportunity. And that's really what I can tell people is just find something you love and you're passionate about and work your butt off to achieve greatness, whatever it may be.
Appreciate that very much, Frank. To go off of that?
Well, I run into that question a lot with the kids that I work with, and I'm sure Mark would too. When I tell these kids, I said, listen, it's your dream. I said, don't let anything interfere with your dream. I said, the best thing you can do is when you see in a magazine or the front page of the newspaper somebody's story of their life. I said, it's not sports, it's anything. It's any field of medicine, whatever it is. Read the story. I said, it all says the same thing. They worked harder than anybody else. They put more time in learning more things than anybody else.
Yeah.
If you work hard for it, if you want it that bad, when you turn and look back to the success that you have, and that was all the work that it took, that's what I did. When I got to the big leagues and I looked back and I saw how hard I worked, and then I see the reward and I was like, wow. I said, this is what a reward this is for it, and it didn't seem like I did that much. But you gotta want what you want. I mean, you gotta want it.
Yeah.
And when you put your mind into it, no one can stop you. And that's the way you tell the kids. That's what we teach these kids that we work with. That's what we do. That's how everybody makes it. Every story's the same.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you both say that in that respect, that when we are, kind of fighting for our dreams and going after the things that we want in life, that it really does come down to the fact of being able to work at it, wanting to work at it, having that drive to do it. And it was funny speaking to Johnson College a few years ago on entrepreneurship and business, and I spoke for like an hour and a half. I'm not one, I had some slides prepared, but I'm not one to write things down. I like to be in the moment. And at the end of it all, I was like, I don't know if I said anything that they're going to remember. I kind of felt like I didn't do enough for the people in the room, and I said, raise your hand if you took something from this. And pretty much everybody raised their hand, and I was like, okay. So I thought I was done, and the teacher went to say something. I said, can I say one more thing? And she said, yeah, go ahead. And I looked at the room and I said, if you take nothing else from today, absolutely nothing, I want you to know this. And I said this a really long time ago, and I use it all the time for myself. I said, you're going to learn really quick in your personal life, professional life, in any relationship, in any dream, in anything you're going after, the difference between I love it and I think I love it. Because if you love it, you will get knocked on your tail a million times. And you start to laugh when you fall back, which is weird, because you like being thrown in the fire after a while. But if you think you love it, you'll get knocked on the ground, and after 1, 2, 3 times, you're like, you know what, I'm going to stay down. So there's really a difference in that, and you both just described that. If you want it, you're going to go after it because it's what your heart desires.
Exactly. There's no stopping it.
Yeah.
Any dream is attainable. You got to how bad you want it.
Yeah, I would say, especially kids nowadays, as we know, have so many distractions.
Yeah.
So it is challenging. I really do feel for them. But, like you said, if you love something, really dedicate your time. You got to do a lot of sacrifice and really decide, hey, if this is what I really want to do. The most successful people in life, to what he said earlier, is that the only difference of successful people and people who are not successful is just putting the time and effort into it. People that worked harder to achieve greatness, and that's the difference.
Yeah, it is. People say it all the time. You can have all the talent in the world, but you have to you have to bring it into the world. You have to find a way to carry that out of yourself. And work ethic is going to defeat raw talent, I think, all the time, because of the fact that there are a lot of talented people in the world, but you have to get after it. You're always, if you're not learning, growing, reinventing yourself, ad-libbing, then you're not really living, I don't think. And what I think is great about tonight's conversation, Talk Around the Diamond, is that I'm sitting here with, like I said, to me, two gentlemen who are heroes to so many people. And yet, you're the most humble, kindest people. And when I text you or call you up and say, hey, would you like to do something? I get a message back, yep. And, Frank, I appreciate Frank's like, I'm retired, whatever you want to do. And then Mark was like, yes, but it's going to be a kind of jumping through a couple weeks because it's a busy time. But the thing is, you're a text message or a phone call away, but you've always been so humble and so great. Where does that come from, Mark?
Well, that comes from having really good parents, for one, but I think, too, is we've been so fortunate in this game to experience so many great things, and so many great people have helped us along the way with our success. So, for us to do things like this, it's just a way of giving back and not forgetting where you come from and all the people that have helped you throughout the years. And, it's what helps me stay humble, and I'm sure the same thing with Frank. But, my dad's always told me that, to be successful, there's a lot of people along your road to your journey that's going to help you get there. So don't forget those people.
No, you can't forget those people. And Frank, why are you so humble?
Well, it's the same thing. It's your personal upbringing with your family, and we were a close Italian family, so whatever Dad said ruled, and it wasn't a bad thing. It was a good thing because it kept you in line. Yeah. He showed you, what do you have to expect from people? Well, you're going to expect from people is people will not treat you the way you want to be treated, And if you can't take it, you're not going to make it in this life.
Yeah.
You have to work hard. And the people above you that are in charge of your life, they know what a hard-working, good work ethic person you can be when you want to be. And they bring the best out in you when they challenge you more and more. And they can see that you rise to the challenge. You don't back down and say, I can't do that, or I quit. Well, no, we don't know those words. It's like you said, we came up with that in our family. No, you don't quit. You challenge it.
I love that you just said we don't know those words, because I say in the show all the time, I literally feel like I'm going to throw up if I attempt to say Q-U. I can't even want to spell it, but Q-U-I-T, I genuinely, in my chest, feel like I'm going to throw up if I say that word, because it's not in me to do it, and I think the difference between somebody sitting up in the stands and somebody on the field, you got to have talent and whatnot, but I look at life like a stadium, right? So if we're in a baseball stadium, and let's say there's 40,000 seats in the stadium, there's 40,000 people watching, but there's only one person on that mound, right? And that's how I look at life. There's 40,000 people sitting there saying they have a dream, but they're not getting out of the seat. And then there's one person on the field saying, I have a dream, and I got my butt out of the chair, and I'm on the mound, and I'm in front of everybody to do it. And I think life can be likened to a stadium in that respect, and you both know what it's like to be on the mound. So, Frank, I'll stay with you on this one, and Mark, I'd love to get your thoughts about this. Did you ever feel the weight of being in a major league stadium, especially on the road, and looking around at everybody going, especially when you're away from your home team's platform, so to speak, that when you look up and think, wow, there's tens of thousands of people that are saying horrible things at me right now, threatening my mom, my dad, me, my dog. So, Frank,
That's Philadelphia people, I'll let you know that.
I call it the city of brotherly hate. It's funny you said that, because I feel that way about Philadelphia. But
well, you're right. When you're out there, you think that you're thinking that. But I know Mark has to feel the same way that I did out there. You don't hear anything.
Yeah.
You hear a buzz. You are so focused on what your job is. If you're worried about who's looking at you or what they're saying about you, you're not going to throw the ball over the plate. You're going to throw it over the backstop or something. I mean, how many bad things have we heard out in the bullpen when we're warming up to come into a game? But you hear it, but you don't hear it. We know what we got to focus in. I got to get this slider working. I got to put this fastball where I got to put it, or I'm going to be done playing this game, and I don't want to be done. So what am I got to do to get this right? Is everything you zero out. And people always said, there's 55,000 people yelling at you. How do you do it? And I was like, I don't hear the people. I said, I look and I see what I have to do, and that's what you do. You go about your business.
that focus, did you have to train yourself, or did it just happen?
Well, that's something that goes with minor leagues. Every minor leagues that you travel, you go up a level every year.
Yeah.
Well, those crowds get bigger every year.
Yeah.
So then you get into AAA level. Now you're not 50,000 people at AAA, but you got a lot more people.
Yeah.
And now you look around going, wow, this is cool.
Yeah.
There might be 10,000 people, which isn't a lot, but to us it is.
Yeah.
Normally there's 200 people out there and they're throwing hot dogs at each other. But here we go. Now you step into the big picture and you got, you're in this stadium with 60,000 people screaming at you.
Yeah.
Yankee Stadium is one of them. It's like that. I mean, it's intimidating.
Yeah.
But you stand out there, especially warming up in the bullpen, you look and you see all the statues and everything, all the stories about the Yankees, and you're like, oh my God, look at this. And it's intimidating, but it's not. You just have to, that's part of the game.
Mark, Frank said he thinks that all he heard was a buzz. Did you also hear everything but nothing? And did you have to train your ear?
It's amazing when you get on the mound for the first time and there's that many people in the stands, you automatically go into tunnel vision where you don't hear anything, but you're looking at the catcher, and that's all you can see and focus on. And it just kicks in. It's not something you train for. I think when you get to that level at any sport, anything competitive, you're used to the competitiveness, so you got to have thick skin, and you got to have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder when to play at that level. So I think it comes natural for most athletes to be able to lock in and focus on the job no matter who's in the stands.
I think it's incredible that you both can do that and share that, because, I mean, it is true. I mean, it's not just with baseball, right? It's with any sport. It's with music.
Yep.
It's with stand-up comedy. It's with, never in a million years did I think, as a broadcaster, I always thought broadcast journalism, I'm a bridge, right? I'm a bridge from the fans to the things that they love, to the people that they love. Never did I think that the coaches and the players would get attacked when we would get attacked. But with social media, they attack everybody. They're a better pitcher than you. They're a better manager than Joe Torre. They're a better broadcaster than me. So you guys, when you were playing, didn't really have to deal with that, right? You had to deal with the fans in the stands, but you didn't have to deal with the social media of it.
Yeah.
How do you see the world now when there's a pitcher who every waking moment of the day can have somebody writing to them positively or negatively?
I mean, athletes now, they're under the microscope so much now. When you talked about social media, everything is exposed and enlarged and magnified to the 10th level. I know my major league debut, I gave up a walk-off home run to Bobby Higginson when he was with the Tigers, and I got back to the hotel room in Detroit, and it was on ESPN Baseball Tonight. They played it over and over again. So all my friends called me, said, hey, congrats on going to the big leagues, but that was a bomb you gave up. So I can only imagine back then when, if social media was around, it would have been all over the place as well. So luckily for me, it wasn't. It was only on ESPN.
At the time, yeah, Frank.
It wasn't at the grand scale it was now, nowadays. But I know what I saw, the press. A lot of the years I was in the bullpen. Most of my career, all of it more or less, I was in the bullpen. And some years I was a closer, some years I set up. So I had different roles in the bullpen.
Yeah.
But I treated them all the same as I was the closer. It didn't matter what inning it was. If I come in with the guys on base, I got to get these guys out before they score any more runs here. So I looked at, that was my positive outlook on it. Not looking at the second inning going, what am I doing getting brought into this game?
Yeah.
Well, the Cardinals are paying me to get this guy out, so I think maybe I should do my job. That's how I looked at it.
Yeah.
So I took pride in what I did, and that's part of pride. I mean, you've got to get somebody out, and they're asking me to do it.
Yeah.
So that's all I would focus on. I wouldn't let anything like that bother me, but the way it is nowadays, I don't know. I don't think I could put up with it. Because back then even, with the press, they'd come in after the game. You gave up the winning home run, like Mark said. What's the first thing they do? 6 of them come charging at you at your locker.
Yeah.
Was that the right pitch you wanted to throw? And I go, obviously it wasn't the right pitch I wanted to throw. It was the right pitch, but it was in the wrong location.
Yeah. And what I think is funny, and I always tell people I'm a member of the media by my badge, but not by personality, morals, values, faith, or really anything that isn't a fiber of my being, because I don't ask the beehive questions, is what I call it. That at the end of the game, if you're responsible partially or whatever, however you feel, if you gave up that pitch for that winning run and they ask you, how do you feel? I don't ask questions I know the answer to. And that's something that I can honestly say in any clubhouse, I've never done that. I've never done it for football, basketball. I mean, you might sit down with somebody and say, hey, this isn't the way you wanted to end the season. What are you reflecting on? What can you appreciate? I always try to give a player a positive. And in covering the Jacksonville Jaguars and so many negatives my poor team has had, those guys didn't want to talk to anybody when they won 2 to 3 games a year. So when I went into that locker room, they're already pissed off at everybody. So you had to find a way to break that wall, and you don't break a wall by saying, hey, Mark, hey, Frank, you know that pitch that went for that home run? How did it feel? Because that's a very easy answer, and you probably, with all due respect to you very kind men, I'm sure you wanted to knock a few people out.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you couldn't do that. You'd like to. I wanted to knock myself out when I did that. You didn't have to have somebody else do it for me.
But I think most reporters and people in the business, I mean, most of them are professional, and every now and then you'll get somebody that just I don't know if they just don't know better, or maybe, I don't know.
They want the quote. I think they want you to get mad.
Yeah, I think they're just looking for attention for themselves. But I think for the most part, my experiences have been pretty good with media and stuff like that.
I think what they're doing nowadays is would drive me crazy. And it's not in baseball. Well, in baseball they are now. They're miking these outfits while they're playing the game.
Yeah.
Now, I can't say it over the air right now, but that is not something I would accept because the guy's not concentrating on what he's supposed to do.
Right.
I'm a pitcher, and that's the center fielder. If he's one step out from getting the ball that I just got hit off me, he ain't gonna catch it. So I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. And every one of them seems to come in and ask the wrong questions. Basketball, football, they're talking to these coaches and right after halftime. The half ends, but the coaches are intense. They walk up, well, coach, what do you have to do to win this game? How about score more points than they do next half? What do you want me to say? That would drive me crazy because those are stupid questions, like you're saying, and they are stupid. But they don't know what to ask anyway. They don't. They got to think it out, and they need more people that can think than just ask a stupid question.
Well, and what you both brought up here in our conversation with Mark Lukasiewicz and Frank DiPino, myself, Dan Tortora, here with you talk around the diamond is what I'm calling it here from the Wildcat Sports Pub on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Great local spot here in central New York for us. What you're both saying, and Frank, you definitely went in on two key pieces of it. It's not a good thing to do interviews during a game. Before the game, after the game, but when you mic somebody up, I mean, if I'm mic'd up in the outfield and I'm running for the ball, number one, I don't want you to hear me breathing. Number two, I might drop an F-bomb or two if I'm going after it. Mm-hmm. I might tell a joke to one of my buddies out there while one of the pitchers is warming up that I don't want you to hear. Because knowing me, my personality is going to come out. So the thing about it is, I think that no matter how talented you are, because you know you're mic'd up, you're not going to be completely yourself. And if you're overthinking that, then you might be underthinking the game. Mm-hmm. The halftime conversations that, and I know in baseball, we're playing through and you have the seventh inning stretch and whatnot, but the basketball halftime, the football halftime, I want to do away with halftime questions on the court and the field because there's nothing to say. There's absolutely nothing. And every time you listen to it, it's the same stuff. Coach, you're losing. What do you do? Coach, you're winning. How do you keep winning? There's nothing you can ask them in the run of the game, and that coach wants to go to the locker room because if they're winning, they want to talk about what they need to keep doing, and especially if they're losing, you're taking part of that 15 minutes away that they got to put something up on the board. Yeah. So I have never understood the let's talk to a coach, and now in the NBA and in college basketball, they'll talk to a coach in the second half of the game while the team's on the court or on the field playing.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand that side.
I don't know why they think that's such a big thing to do. It's not. In being in the sports that we play, I wouldn't accept it.
Yeah, I think it's just where we are now in society. I mean, I know the media kind of controls everything now, and I'm sure they get better ratings when they get a kind of point of view when they're in the huddle and they're with the coach in between innings and stuff like that, or even during the game. But to Frank's point, I mean, if I'm a pitcher, I want my team focusing on the game, not talking to someone from the TV station.
Yeah, where they went to eat that day. Is there a good restaurant around here?
But the teams are in a tough spot. If they don't do it, then they get blasted by the media, and if they do it, so it's kind of double-edged sword. So they're in a tough position.
So maybe I should make a T-shirt with my clothing line, and obviously I'm wearing Dan Tortora Broadcast Media, which is a simple mic and headphones for all the shows that we do, including Wake Up Call. Maybe I should have a hashtag that says "Let Coaches Be" or like halftime break or something like that.
Yeah,
because I don't, and I tune in when I'm in the dome. And hey, Dino, what do you need to? It's like if I'm Dino, and the thing is, of the 3 questions that he answers, it's probably a combined 10 words. Yeah. There's nothing to say.
No.
Yeah, we're gonna see. Yeah, we hope he gets better. Yeah, we're gonna try to do this. Thanks. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Nobody gains anything.
No.
There's no knowledge. Because it's pretty simple. If you're down at halftime, make adjustments. If you're up at halftime, keep winning. So, to look at baseball right now in this moment, I'm happy that scheduling put us in a situation where we are on the brink of the playoffs. The postseason is coming up. We have an additional team here. We have a unique situation now where Major League Baseball, as it's evolved with the wild card, there's no more one game. We have a series of multi-games now. We get to really see how these teams can match up against each other. If you're at the top of the AL or the NL, you get to sit and watch. And I'd love to get your thoughts, Mark. I'll start with you on the expanded playoffs, knowing that we have an expanded series now that we can deal with, and the fact that adding a team in creates obviously more opportunity for more cities. But do you like it, dislike it?
Yeah, I don't mind it. I think it's more competition, but you know, you look at this year. I mean, there's a lot of good teams, and you look at each division. I mean, for the most part, other than the National League East, each division there's one team running away with each division. So, you know, really that NL East is the one division that I'm looking at where it's very competitive. It's down to 1 or 2 games, but you know, at the end of the day, the best teams are going to rise to the occasion. And they're the ones you're going to see in the postseason and in the World Series.
To stay with you on this before we get Frank's thoughts on the expanded playoff, as you look at the divisions this year, if I sat down with you both 3 months ago, 2 months ago, a month ago, 3 days ago, 3 weeks ago, the AL East and the NL East are responsible for 50% of the playoffs on one side, 50% on the other side. 3 of 6 teams coming from the AL East with the Blue Jays, the Rays, and the Yankees. And on the National League side, the East claiming 3 spots with the Philly. Well, hopefully, you know, looking at the Phillies, the Braves, and the Mets. They have held serve the majority of the season. And whenever every Thursday, Papa Joe comes on the show, we sit, we talk about baseball all throughout the season. And I kept saying, both of these divisions are going to get 3 teams in, and here we are again. And no matter how close the Milwaukee Brewers come, the Phillies are able to keep them at bay. So, Mark, you know, to look at this year's playoff, knowing that the East divisions have commanded for so long, what do you think about the fact that 50% of both sides comes from the East division?
Yeah, it's interesting to see that. I mean, but you know, we talked earlier about the expanded playoffs and teams going in. I mean, the downside to it is, to your point, when you have a team like the Mets or the Astros who've been playing so well throughout the year, but now all of a sudden you have a team that's going to make it that normally doesn't. You know, you look at the Padres; they're 23 games behind the Dodgers, and they're going to make the wild card. So where typically that doesn't happen. So you know, it's good that it creates more competition, but on the negative side is that you're kind of diminishing the value of the regular season play.
Yeah. And we now know there's no 163rd game if there's a tiebreaker as well. Frank, your thoughts on the expanded playoff and the way that things look for the postseason now?
Well, I feel the same way as Mark just said, but what the teams that are getting that chance, and it's a golden chance for them to sneak into the playoffs, is about 10 days before the season comes to an end, they got to start juggling their starting stat to get to where, if they do make the playoffs, you got to have your best pitchers in line to make those 2 games starts of however many they get to play. You want your best guys there. Well, so do the guys. Now they got to have their aces ready for the first and second game, and they're, you know, the number 1 team in the playoff. But now they got to battle to stay alive, because if you got a decent pitcher out there, he can beat your team, and that's part of the game. Is how much you're going to rise to the occasion, and that competition level we're talking about. These guys are painting the black with all these nasty pitches, making good hitters look bad, and those guys are putting all the pressure on them, knowing they got to win and expected to win. So there's a lot of pressure in those games. So you're going to see some upsets. I guarantee it. It might not be for the series, but you're going to see some guys getting beat and knocked out of the game by the second inning, because they have to manage that way.
Yeah, and I like that point to it. Favorite pitch to throw, in your opinion, and most difficult one to learn?
favorite pitch was strike 3.
I guess I should have said type of pitch.
My toughest pitch that it took me 3 years to learn was I came up with a split finger finally, and it actually added like 3 or 4 years to my career because I stayed in and faced a lot of right-handed hitters. Whitey Herzog I played for in St. Louis, and then Joe Torre took over in St. Louis. But they both would end up bringing me into games. I'm facing a right-handed hitter right away, where normally if manager bring me into the game, I'm facing a lefty. But I had a split finger fastball. Now it dives down and away to a right-handed hitter. You got a ground ball going to shortstop. I got Ozzie Smith playing behind me. They want to see a ground ball, so they'll bring me into a game, and hopefully that happens that way.
Yeah.
So that was my toughest pitch to learn, but it's my savior pitch for sure.
Yeah.
But I had a real good slider, and my slider was good against both lefties and righties, so I was lucky there too.
I like that. Favorite pitch to throw and the most difficult?
Probably my slider was my bread and butter. I really only threw 2 pitches, fastball, slider. I threw everything hard. So, my ticket to the big leagues was facing left-handed hitters. That's where I was tough to break that slider down on the outer half against lefties. And toughest pitch, I could never throw a split finger. I've tried. I got big fingers. You'd think it'd be easy, but I couldn't throw a split finger to save my life. It was awful.
Took forever to learn it.
The moment that you got that call that you were going up, bring me into that moment for you, Mark.
I was in New Orleans and playing AAA with the Angels. We just got done with a game. I went to bed. Got a call from my manager at like 3 in the morning. Woke me up and said, you got to be ready, be at the airport by 6 o'clock, taking a plane going to Detroit, and going to the big leagues. So I had to kind of pinch myself. I thought I was dreaming because I was sleeping, but finally got up and realized it. So, just a surreal experience. When I got there, it just, all the things start playing in your memory, all the years of playing Little League, high school, and all the time, you've dedicated to the game with your dad out in the backyard and things like that. It all starts coming together, and they're finally starting to hit you like, hey, this is all finally paid off. So it's a surreal moment. It's amazing. I wish everybody can experience that, but it's a cool experience.
Yeah. And I love that.
Most definitely.
The middle of the night, too, where you have to, like you said, pinch yourself and constantly go through, did I dream it? Did I feel it? Should I call somebody? Make sure that it actually happened. Frank, what was your moment?
Mine was not movie-making moment, but it was after a game, one of the last games of our season in AAA, and the manager called me in and said that the team's bringing me up for the first time that I ever did go to Milwaukee, is who I was with at the time. And I was going to meet the team at home, so I knew my plan and everything like that. But boy, I'll tell you, the adrenaline just doesn't get that high. And I wish I felt that way when I was pitching. That adrenaline was just, oh my God, it takes right over. But that was the greatest thrill you ever. That's the one you want to hear.
Yeah. That phone call, Frank DiPino, Mark Lukasiewicz, myself, Dan Tortora here. Talk around the diamond. This wake-up call with Dan Tortora special on-site, on location from the Wildcat Sports Pub on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. And, of course, for takeout and delivery, 315-487-2222. It is the home for you to watch all of the playoffs for the Major League Baseball postseason and sports all throughout the year. And there is a massive screen behind me that will be playing this. The Yankees and the Mets are both in, and a lot of people want that Subway Series. There's a lot of teams that are going to try and thwart that, named the Dodgers and the Astros and so on and so forth. But, Frank, your thoughts on the fact that the Yankees and the Mets started off hot, and really nobody at the time could beat the Yankees until the Mets did it. So these are two teams from the great state of New York that are hoping to make this a very interesting postseason. Your thoughts on both New York teams in?
Well, it's great that they're both in again. Yeah, that's something you want to see when you're from New York. That's what you want, the battle. Because you're going to like one of them. I know that. So you want yours to be the team. But yeah, it's great for the state of New York, and to have that happen again, you could feel the energy in everybody. But it's going to be tough to watch. To me, you got to get through Atlanta. You got to get through the Dodgers, the Astros. You know, these guys are not pushovers. These are good hitting teams. So it's not going to be a pushover for anybody to get there. The Dodgers, I give the Dodgers more credit than the Yankees actually to get to the playoffs easily without, the Yankees getting there. They got a lot of ifs, maybes, and kind of lineups that they've been putting up there. It's just like they got 6 hitters maybe, and not a full lineup up there because a lot of these guys are just call-ups because they're filling in for guys that are getting hurt. You got all these guys that the Yankees have been, bringing up in the last 2 months. They get up here and then they're hurt. You look at their disabled list. How many guys are on the disabled list? There's 20 guys on their disabled list. It's like, when I saw the list that one day, I was like, wait, is this a AAA team they get? Or is this that's a disabled list at the major league level?
Yeah.
And I'm going, well, how are these guys getting hurt? I don't get it. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of teams in the National League that can make it easily to the World Series. So, and like I said, it all depends on your pitching. That's where it all rests on all the time.
Yeah, and we know that it's going to be very true because there's a lot of teams that can hit. But when it comes down to it, it's who. I mean, and it's funny. It doesn't matter what sport you play. When they talk about offense is great to watch and it sells tickets, but defense wins championships, right? Pitching wins championships. So, Mark, for you to see these 2 New York teams in and not stumbling or fumbling into this thing, but the Yankees had their moment where they faltered and now have started to turn it on, and Judge is obviously having a season for the century, for many, many ages, and then seeing the Mets, with DeGrom finally getting back, and with everybody talking about Aaron Judge and all these different things going on, people forgetting about Pete Alonso. So your thoughts on the fact that the Mets and the Yankees are going to at least have a shot at the World Series?
Yeah, I think it's exciting. Anytime you have both New York teams going to the postseason, it's great for the area, it's great for the state. So I'm excited. The Yankees obviously have had a really good season, but to your point, pitching wins a World Series. And personally for me, I just don't think the Yankees are deep enough pitching to get there. The Astros have been their nemesis all year. To me, I think they're much deeper. They have a lot more postseason experience on that team. To me, I think that's going to be the team to beat in the American League. And as far as the National League, I honestly think it's going to be whoever wins that National League East between the Braves and the Mets are going to be the team going to the World Series. I love the Mets. I'm a huge Bucky Showalter fan. I've grown up a Mets fan, and I've kind of been frustrated with their manager choices over the years. And as soon as they signed Buck Showalter, I said, that's the guy that's going to take them to the World Series. He's a great manager. He knows he doesn't take any crap, and the team seems to really connect with him. And he expects the best out of his players. But again, they got great pitching. Now you got DeGrom, Scherzer. You got a loaded pitching staff with their hitting. They're going to be tough to beat. And also, too, I wouldn't count out the Cardinals and watching Albert Pujols trying to go out with a bang here in the postseason.
Yeah, and you just brought up being a Mets fan, but the manager, you not being a fan of some of that lineage. Off the air, Frank and I were talking about the situation with Major League Baseball now, about the manager and the role of the manager. So, Mark, I'd love to hear your overall thoughts, and because I know Frank has some thoughts as well, about how much you put on the manager and what you can say about what their place is in the game, and in a case like we've seen this season where a couple teams right in the middle of everything said to their manager, here's your pink slip.
Well, the manager sets the tone of the team, and when you're dealing with a bunch of professional athletes, there's a lot of egos in that clubhouse. So you need a manager that's firm and is going to really set the stage on how he wants that team to perform. A good manager is going to expect the best out of every player and give it 100%. and that's something like Bucky Showalter does, where maybe some other managers maybe get intimidated by some of the high-profile players. But it's important. I mean, it's at the end of the day, the team's got to go out there and do the job. But a manager will set the tone and set the culture in that clubhouse, which will lead to success.
Appreciate that. Frank, I know you and I were talking about one of the things in baseball you're not happy with right now, so I'd love for you to give your thoughts.
Well, what we were talking about earlier, and I brought it right up right away, and it is true, is how analytics are running the way managers manage. And they point at it when you question their move. Why did you bring so-and-so in to hit out with this guy? Well, analytics showed that. And now what is his defense to the general manager when he comes and questions you for doing that move? That's what he says. And now he's got to go with it because it's not the manager's decision. Well, yes, it is. You're going to manage to win. You don't go by what a number says on a sheet of paper. It doesn't matter what that says. That's like stat sheets. You know, well, he's hitting this, and these guys are reading that, believing that. Well, you still have to go out and prove that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not how you play the game. You got to just put the stat sheets away. They're not going to get you a base hit or an extra run batted in. You know what I mean? That's not going to do it. I never looked at the stats. I never would. The only thing I remember is when I came into a game, the hardest my competition was I had to get the hitters out to get these guys back in there on the field and me in the dugout with my teammates without giving up a run. Yeah. That's the only reason. When I was brought into a game, 90% of the time, there's guys on base. And that's my job, and I loved it. I loved that competition. I said, you guys are done. Yeah. And that's how I treated it. But now, I mean, these guys, they shake it up. They give up a couple hits and a couple runs, and those guys that score aren't their runs, so they don't care. A good example of it, okay? A quick one. Yeah. And not bragging because it's not a bragging thing, because I didn't know it at the time. When I went to Kansas City, and that was my last year in the big leagues. That was my 12th year, okay? George Brett was there at the time. That was his last year, so I got the honor of playing with him. That was unbelievable. But Chris Gwynn was on the Royals. Well, he's the brother of Tony Gwynn. Well, I played him in the National League for 11 years. Okay. Whenever we played San Diego, 3-game series, I'm in 3 games. 4-game series, I'm in 4 games. They got Tony Gwynn and other left-handed tough hitters, and I know I'm going to be pitching. So mentally, I was ready, and I always was. So when I got to Kansas City, after about a month being there and knowing Chris Gwynn over the time, he came up to me one day and handed me a baseball card, and I looked at it and I threw it at him. And he goes, no, he goes, read the back of it. It was Tony Gwynn. Because I know I faced him 100 times. That's what it felt like. Yeah. So he goes, read the back. And I read it. He loved to face John Smoltz. He was batting .480. And it said he hated to face Frank DiPino. And I'm like, what is this, a misprint? And he goes, no. I looked at it, it was 1 for 20 of them. And if somebody had asked me, you know, you faced Tony Gwynn 15 times or 20 times, how many hits did he get? I would have said, I don't know, 15. I mean, he was that good a hitter. Yeah. But you always face it, and you know, I know I'm facing it. Yeah. Well, you know, what was the secret? I don't know. There is no secret. You got defense behind you. You hope he hits it at somebody most of the time. I mean, that's just how it goes. Yeah. But that's what I mean. I'm not a stat guy, and I didn't want to. They don't do anything for you but blow your ego up out of place, you know. But it's not how you win a game.
Going off of, and I appreciate your point, and fantastic stat for you. Do you have, when you look back on your career in the majors, do you have someone that you loathed facing? And do you have somebody that you face that's like, you're kind of, you know, like I said, you're both humble, but your claim to fame in your brain of going, that was an out that I was, I mean, is yours Tony Gwynn or is it somebody else?
No, the one that I couldn't get out was Howard Johnson. I could have thrown the rosin bag up there and Howard would have hit a home run. I mean, he was just one of those, I made up change-ups against him and he still would hit it. Yeah. So he was my nemesis, my biggest one.
Do you have, to the other side of that, if he's your nemesis, do you have somebody that you struck out that you just in your brain is still your favorite moment?
I faced Reggie one time and I struck him out. So that was pretty cool. It was the end of his career, but it made my ego grow.
Yeah.
But yeah, any other, just one person power hitters. I love facing power hitters.
Yeah.
Because they have a place to go to get them out. That's the way it was. That's what I like.
I like that. Mark, your nemesis and your favorite out?
Probably my favorite out was playing in the American League West. We faced the Mariners all the time. So I faced Ichiro a number of times, who I consider one of the best 5-tool players in the game. And luckily for me, I had a lot of good success. He did not like facing me. I didn't like my slider. So I was able to get him out a number of times. But maybe because he just didn't know me that well. So I kind of just chalk it up to luck, but great player, amazing Hall of Fame type player, going to be in the Hall of Fame. As far as my nemesis, not one specific. I would probably say the two guys I didn't really enjoy facing was Gary Sheffield, and I faced him when he was with the Dodgers at the time, and Carlos Delgado. And the reason why I didn't like facing them two guys is when they hit the ball came off the bat completely different than any other player. Those guys were so physically strong that the ball just jumped off their bat, and it was scary to watch how the bat speed that was generated when they swung the bat. So to me, that kind of scared me a little bit when I was pitching to those two guys.
Hey, go ahead. Yeah, so no, I appreciate those stories for sure, and obviously, those of you that know baseball, you know these names. Being pitchers and being on that mound, we've all talked about the Astros here tonight. What would you have done if you were the commissioner of baseball to that team in their World Series, number one? And number two, are you okay with baseball justice of, a couple years of having their players get hit by pitchers? So what would you have done if you were the commissioner of baseball, Mark? And if you were on the mound, would you hit them?
Yeah, probably. So, listen, it's baseball, and guys have always done things to give themselves an advantage. I think the Astros kind of took it to a whole nother level with that situation. But at the end of the day, baseball is a mental game, and I know Frank feels the same way. It's very competitive when you're facing these guys that are huge at home plate. You're really trying to really take advantage. You're letting that hitter know that's my strike zone, and sometimes you got to pitch in to demand that strike zone and get the hitter uncomfortable. And the hitter's trying to do the same thing. They're up there trying to take advantage. So it becomes more of a psychological game as well as a physical. So I had no problem. I think pitchers don't pitch in enough nowadays, where they really got to back hitters off to take advantage. And now you're able to move that ball around the plate. And listen, sometimes you hit someone. It's part of the game. Obviously, if you're going to try to hit someone, I am not a big fan going after guys throwing at above their shoulders, going after their head. But at the end of the day, it's a grown man sport. It's a professional sport, and sometimes you got to hit somebody.
I respect the answer, Frank. Your thoughts on this? If you were on the mound right now,
is this a narrated channel?
I can tell you that.
I'll tell you.
Being on the internet, there's no FCC, so you can say whatever you want.
Okay. Yeah, when I found what they did in order to win the way they did in all those games and everything, it was, I couldn't believe it. If I was commissioner, I would have suspended every player on that team for 1 year. They did what the White Sox did was, like they stole a bat. And that was how bad they did. When it's compared to. What the Astros did, yes, every team since we played baseball, you're trying to steal signs. Yeah. But to that extent, we have a computer out there and just, they just had total control of it. And I just couldn't understand that they did not penalize any one player, because then you'd have to penalize every player. Yeah. Well, every player was part of it, so you get You got to pay the price, and that's the way I look at it. I hated it. I thought I felt ashamed to be associated with the Houston Astros because they played for them. After seeing what they did until they said, like I said, through the World Series.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my God, that's I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to get too carried away with it, but that was bull.
I think most people. I know for me personally, I think most people were more upset with their apology, which lack of apology. It seemed like it was kind of a half-ass apology by the Astros players. And listen, you got caught, own up to it, and let's move on. But I think the fact that they just kind of tried to sweep it under the rug and not apologize, I think that pissed a lot of people
like
off.
it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, exactly.
It was no big deal. Well, yeah, it was. It carried you through the whole season, playoffs, and World Series.
Yeah.
And then the thing that really pissed me off was the next year they hired, because the manager did get fired finally, they did something.
Yeah.
But Dusty Baker comes in, and the first thing he does is to go right to the commissioner and says, "You got to protect my player from being hit." And I'm thinking, bullshit, you better tell me where the catcher's gear up there to go hit against me, because everyone I faced, if I was in that league that year, I would have hit everybody I came in to face. I would have drilled them. Not anything above the shoulders. I don't do that either. I mean, I hated a lot of players, but I would never go near their head. But drill them? Hell yeah. I would have drilled every one of them. I would have never had an out recorded against the Astros that year. I guarantee if I'd faced 100 guys, I hit 100 players. Because that's how much it upset me that they did that to the game. They did it to the game. They didn't do it to the players that they're playing against. They did it to the game. They made mockery of our game, and that's not right. And I hated that more than anything that they did that. It made a mockery of our game. And that's all, and like I said, obviously it bothers me. You can hear it in my voice, obviously. But it's mocking my game, and I don't like it.
And the thing is, and I mean, obviously, what they did helped them to win a World Series. So it's clear and present there to not have it taken away from them. I mean, it's the same when they say, okay, the Patriots cheated and they were filming things, and then if they would have had a perfect season if not for the Giants. And I'm like, no, it has nothing to do with the Giants. That season should have been negated. They should have forfeited the year. Then they should be 0-0. So if you keep the rings and you keep the trophy and you have a half-assed apology and you don't look like you're sorry and the players aren't punished, then there is no protecting the game. So yeah, when you talk about Dusty Baker saying protect my players, I would say your players didn't protect our game.
Yeah.
And I, can tell you that my dad loves baseball, so I grew up playing basketball my whole life. My dad wanted me to play baseball. I got hit by a wild pitch right above my kidney, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'm good with Little League now. After that happened, because I wanted to focus on basketball, with no disrespect to baseball. But I go back and I look at that, and I always wanted to pitch. I always wanted to get on the mound, and I never got to see what I was going to be, because my dad and I would, be in the backyard and whatnot, but the Little League coach that I had, I thought he should let everybody get a feel for it, because I wanted to see what I was doing wrong, what I was doing right. If I was on the mound, I think, because they say how many years is enough, I think as long as there's an Astro on that roster from that non-championship team, I would hit them until they left the team. I would, if you're wearing an Astros jersey and you're part of that championship, you might become a Mariner or a Yankee, and I might hit you then. Until you're out of baseball, I might make you have to protect. I might make you respect the plate and go as close as I possibly can. Nothing above the shoulders, as you guys said, but I don't think you'll find a Puritan of baseball that would tell you not to hit the Astros.
We would have made good teammates. Because that's just what I thought was the penalty for it was you get booed and thrown at the rest of your career. That's the way I look at it. There's no penalty at all.
Right.
Not even a fine. I mean, come on, you got to come up with something.
Yeah.
And the guys just walked away, and Mark is right in what he said. I mean, these guys just walked away. I don't want to talk about it. To the press, because the press, they're like, what? Do you guys really agree with no? No, they're not asking those questions. They're letting them get away with it, and it's not right.
That was the thing where, when you're giving an apology, actually mean it. And I think, Ben Roethlisberger, the second time that he was found, he was accused of sexual assault, I'll never forget that he was in the Steelers locker room, and he had a sheet of paper or something in his hand, and I remember he went, "I'm really sorry about this." And I'm sitting here thinking, is that what's written on that sheet of paper? And you had to look down to say that, and it was so false, and it was so nothing. And then it brings up Mark McGwire, where he gets brought to Congress, and they say, "We want to know if you took steroids." And he leaned in and said, "I'm not here to talk about my past and what I did in the past. I'm here to talk about the present." And I said, nobody cares what you're doing in the present. You're only here to talk about your past. You're only here to talk about when you played. How can you come here knowing that this is why you're here and say, "Well, I'm not going to talk about yesterday. I'm here to talk about today." And if I'm not guilty, I'm not going to say anything other than, "No, I didn't do it." I'm not going to say I'm not here to talk about it. And I remember going, "Mark, what do you think they're asking you about now? How you landscape?" Like, nobody cares about your life in this moment at this place. Yeah. We're here at Congress to talk about what you did and why you did it, for how long you did it, and if anything you did was without it. So
they'll never be forgiven in my mind. I know that.
Well, the thing is people say Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa saved baseball after we saw that lockout. So there's people that have forgiven them because they saved baseball, but at what cost? And there are people in the world that say that the end justifies the means, and there's the people that say, no, if the means are wrong and the means are cheating, then I don't care what end you found. Where do you stand on it? Can you say they saved baseball, let's get over it? Or do you see it like Frank sees it and says, hey, what Mark and Sammy did to the game, whatever it did to help the game, they did it the wrong way?
Well, I'm a firm believer, just like we were talking earlier about the Astros. I think the way that McGwire, Sosa, Bonds handled the whole situation, very arrogant. You know, like you said, McGwire wouldn't talk to anybody, Bonds didn't talk to anybody. You know, Sosa, all of a sudden couldn't speak English. So it's, I think the way they handle it really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And that's really my reason why I think they shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. If they just came out and say, hey, listen, it wasn't right, I shouldn't have done it, I think a lot of people would forgive them because they were great players before they took steroids. Yeah. They're Hall of Fame caliber players. Yeah. So I think if they just owned up to it and said, hey, apologize, it wasn't the right thing to do, I think people would have forgiven them and we would have been able to move on. And they might be in the Hall of Fame today already if they took that approach, but unfortunately they chose not to.
Yeah, and I think the irony is that their bats, their balls, their jerseys are in the Hall of Fame, but they won't be. Frank, you've already kind of expressed it, but your thoughts?
Well, I don't think any part of their uniform or even the thought of them should be in the Hall of Fame itself. They belong to be out of there, yes. I've met with Hall of Famers in Cooperstown during the Hall of Fame weekend. I run into guys I played with down there, during my career. I played with these Hall of Famers. And they all say the same thing. They say if one of those guys gets elected to the Hall of Fame, he says when he's up there giving his speech, if he turns and looks behind him, he's going to see empty chairs behind him because not one of them Hall of Famers is going to be there.
Yeah.
They're in there for the wrong reason. They did not prove that they were Hall of Fame players. They proved they can cheat and get away with it. Well, no, it isn't going to be accepted by the Hall of Famers, so you better not even try it because it's a waste of your time. Unless they're going to stand up there and brag to the press because that's all that's going to be there. And maybe about 40 or 50 fans.
Yeah, and I think what we've seen, and it's crazy when you look at the list now, that if you fall below a certain percentage, then you're out of the voting. But I believe, as it stands today, that McGwire, Sosa, and Bonds are done. I don't think there's any window to get in now because that has passed them by. But rightly so.
They bring it up again, I think, in 5 years, Mark, or is it 10 years?
Yeah, I believe
There's another time, I don't know.
Yeah, that they passed the first whatever, but there's still a chance.
Yeah,
But I
but
think
like,
that now that this is passed, it's.
Right.
I would think that it would be
And normally
typical.
that's for
Yeah.
players that play the game, not for these assholes, but,
Yeah.
you know, the guys that play the game. You know
Well,
what I mean?
people
They're
forget
on
that
their
Barry
end.
Bonds was 89 pounds and could run the bases before he became the Michelin Man. So,
Yeah, exactly.
you know,
No doubt
there,
about it.
there is that forgetting of that. So, final piece here, a couple final pieces, Aaron Judge being one of them. If George Steinbrenner, God rest his soul in heaven, if he was here today, then Aaron Judge would have been a Yankee for the next, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever he figured out it to be. This would have happened at the beginning of the season. Well, we were trying to figure out if there was going to be a baseball and everything that was going on. He would have gotten paid. The blank check would have been handed to him. So, Frank and then Mark, your thoughts on the fact that Aaron Judge has not been extended with the Yankees, that the deeper he goes into this, the more money he costs, and arguably could become the highest paid player in baseball, potentially.
Well, I believe if he continues with the surge he's having and he ends up winning the Triple Crown,
Yeah.
oh my God. I mean, yeah, he's going to get more than anybody I'll ever have made in the game itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's being cheated by the Yankees for, I don't know how he played that well all year. Knowing that that was in the back of his mind, how could they treat me that way when I'm giving them everything I got? No matter what I'm doing out there, I'm busting my butt to give him everything, playing every position. They're putting him anywhere, and he goes out there and plays the hell out of that position. Doesn't say a word.
Yeah.
You know, comes up, does his job. Now he hits all those home runs, and the oh my God, the streak they went on there for a while, it was unbelievable. The whole world's watching. It was just so crazy the way they were winning all the time. And he's not being rewarded for that because he was a huge part of that. You know, so I'm looking at it like, why did these guys sign? They wanted to sign him. He's saying, just sign me whatever I want. I mean, I'm not asking for the world. He goes, I'll take this.
Yeah.
And they could have got away with it. But now they're going to have to double that, at least.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you look at the fact that arguably Aaron Judge resurrected and saved the Yankees. Jacob deGrom has resurrected and put the Mets out there. So there are people that you need to take care of. And, you know, Aaron Judge is the reason why some of the youth of today that wasn't into baseball is into baseball. Some Yankee fans are back. Some Yankee fans are happy again. There's many different factions of Yankee fans that were or weren't, that are now, all because of Aaron Judge. And one of my nieces, shout out to Lorelei, she's got a little Aaron Judge, you know, stuffed figure there that she has with her all the time, and she's a big Yankee fan because of Aaron Judge. So, thoughts on the fact that the most notable person with the biggest spotlight in baseball, arguably, is not paid yet?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Like you said earlier, I think George Steinbrenner would have locked him in a while ago because George was all about finding the best players and pay them what they want. But Aaron Judge is a Yankee. I mean, he's loved by everybody. The Yankee fans love him. He represents the team well. He's the next Derek Jeter of the Yankees, in my opinion. And he's kind of a guy you want to build your franchise around. And the fact that he's having one of the best years in a long time of any baseball player that he's putting up. If the Yankees don't go sign him, then there's going to be an uproar in New York City. I mean, fans are going to go nuts.
Yeah.
So I think the Yankees are going to do the right thing. They might have to unload some payroll to do it, which probably a smart thing. I wouldn't be surprised if they get rid of Stanton and maybe some top prospects and things like that. But at the end of the day, they have to sign Aaron Judge.
Yeah, and I think what it comes down to is what's going to be the bigger riot, Aaron Judge not signing or the gas prices in New York City right now. So these gentlemen have been fantastic for this talk around the diamond on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from the Wildcat Sports Pub on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Your home for the entire baseball season and all throughout the year for family. The great thing about the Wildcat, going on a date, being with mom and dad, families, kids' birthday parties, whatever, anniversaries, whatever you have going on, team get-togethers, it's all worked well here, and I've seen it for almost 7 years now, how well it works. So Frank DiPino, Mark Lukasiewicz, you guys have been fantastic in answering my questions. We do a thing on the show called Rapid Fire. So you're off of the seat now. I'm not asking any questions. You both get to put me on the hot seat and ask me any 2 questions in the world. Could be baseball, could be something else. So Frank, you'll get one, then Mark, and then back to you. Whatever you want to ask me, Frank, and I have to answer it.
Well, one of them is about, is baseball the only sport that you really like and that you talk about on radio, or is it all the sports?
So on the show, we've had baseball, crew, volleyball, bowling, tennis, swimming and diving, basketball, football, softball. So I'll cover anything, and I can honestly tell you my passion for baseball was ignited by, I call him the other dad in my life, my uncle Papa Joe, who's with me every Thursday. We do the PJ Takeover, and we talk baseball, football predominantly. But it started being in St. Augustine, being at his house, and talking, and he gave me so much credit for what I know. And I was like, I don't know as much as I think you think I know, because he knew so much more. He knows so much more. And he challenged me to be better at everything. And I just remember sitting at the table going, you give me the credit for knowing all this, I better earn it, I better know it, and I better expand my horizon. And I just love the fact that we talked about sports, where sports meets life, which is the tagline for Wake Up Call. And I didn't want to be selfish keeping my uncle to myself. So I said to him, I go, do you want to come on the show? And we did college football season, then we would do college in the NFL. Then I said I won every Thursday. And now a few years have gone by, and he's with me every single Thursday. And I got to tell you, it is a time capsule that I will keep forever, because he is one of the greatest pieces of my life that God has given me. And getting to share him with the world is a beautiful thing, because he's just so passionate. And I blame him for how much I love watching baseball right now. So I'd say that. All right, Mark, what's your first one?
Well, I know we talked earlier about, having a dream and a passion. Obviously, you've been doing radio for a while. Is that something you've always wanted to do since you were a kid? Is that something you always had a passion for, or did you want to be a fireman when you were a kid?
So I wanted to play basketball as a kid, and I wanted to play for SU, wanted to go to the Toronto Raptors, wanted to be number 21, play with number 20, Damon Stoudemire, my favorite player ever. But I would tell you that I've always been a storyteller, and on my ring, which has a feather pen on it, whether it's sportscasting, anything with broadcasting, journalism, screenwriting, songwriting, stand-up comedy, everything that I do in my life, it starts with a pen and a piece of paper. So I started writing stories on my dad's word processor at 5 years old. And that glorified typewriter where you could actually see what you were typing and you could back up, I have that word processor in my office studio. I have that there to remind me of humble beginnings at 5 years old, crawling up on the chair on a Saturday morning to write a story that was from my imagination at 5 years old. So I've always loved to tell stories. I've always loved to make people laugh. And I have a photographic memory. So I've always collected cards, and I would flip them to the back and collect them and not even realize that I would just be firing off stats. So with all of that together and talking to my parents at 10 years old at the table, and my mom and dad hearing about what I think about this game and this team and this player, and then after a while my mom's like, all right, that's enough, let's talk about something else. Like, never take away what you love, but you're talking a lot about it. I mean, I don't think anybody was surprised. But as a junior in high school, I said, whatever I do in my life, I will be a sportscaster. No one will stop me. Many, many people have tried. And if I'm not like the Hulk when you throw me in the fire, I love what I do. I will do it for the rest of my life. I'll do the other things too, but have I always wanted to sportscast? I say this humbly without any ego, because I believe that God and I are on a journey that I am so grateful for. There's nobody in the world that can sit next to me and try and get me off the mic. I will walk everybody shoulder to shoulder out of that room because no one is going to take my job. So I've always been in love with it, I guess. Frank, what's your...
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Say you did have the chance to play in baseball.
Okay. Is this your second question?
Yes,
Okay.
this is my second one.
Okay.
All right, so now you've been talking to me and Mark. You can tell the passion we had. Now, when you come up to the big leagues, are you going to have the same passion that we have? Because you can hear it. I know in my voice, everybody keeps telling me they back up when I talk because I get so involved with it. Are you going to have that same passion? And am I going to accept you as my teammate, knowing that you do have heart? I want you on my team.
Well, I love the question. I have never done anything halfway. And in any relationship in life, if someone's out of my life, it's because they quit. So I don't quit on people. I don't quit on things that I care about. If there's something I need to do that I promise someone I'm going to do, it is there. It goes from the back of my head to the first thing I wake up. Oh, I didn't do that yet. Oh, I said I was going to do that. If I was supposed to text one of you and set something up, I'm thinking in my head, I didn't do that, I got to do it. I got to get that done. And it'll stay with me until it's done. So I would say to you, if I'm on your team, no one's going to fight harder. Nobody's going to want it more. There's no better teammate you're going to want to have. I'm going to pray with you. I'm going to cry with you. I'm going to eat with you. I'm going to laugh with you. And if we lose every game, we're going to lose with dignity together. If we win every game, we're going to win with dignity together. And I would tell you, if I'm in your clubhouse, we're going to have awesome moments when we spray that champagne. And we're going to have those really heartfelt, tough moments where we're going to cry with my arm around you and you around me. And it's going to make us better. There is no better teammate than me, in my opinion, of what I'm willing to give to somebody I love. And I can say from knowing you both and sitting with you, God, I would have loved to have been in that clubhouse and kick ass with the both of you. I tell you that. All right, Mark, what's your last one?
So I guess my last question is, what is your prediction? What two teams are going to be in the World Series and who's going to win?
I don't want the Astros. I really don't. And if it was up to me, baseball would have taken them out for a year and made them sit and watch everybody play, because that's how you learn to keep your hand out of the cookie jar. So, you know, to watch 162 games and be able to do nothing and get no money, that would humble you, I would hope. But, you know, I would love to see the Yankees, but I guess I'm going to say, if it's on talent and what's there, I'm going to say the Astros, but my heart wants the Yankees in the American. In the National League, God, it is a buzzsaw to go through the Dodgers. I want Yankees-Mets. I really think it can be Astros-Dodgers, which I don't want to see. But I'm going to say Astros-Mets, and let's go Mets. And I'm going to pick those Mets and DeGrom and Pete Alonso and all of these guys I got to see. Family friend of Debbie Nevins Edmondson, Brett Beatty. I'm going to cheer, all the guys that I got to see here. But I got to see Scherzer here. Didn't get to see DeGrom here, which I really wanted to. But, yeah, I'm going to say Mets and Astros, and let's go Mets. And, if you go below the shoulder, DeGrom, Scherzer, and company, and you just, give them a little, hey, I see you, I remember what you did, I'm okay with that. But, God, I can feel it inside of me right now, like that energy that just hopefully you could see it in my smile. If the Mets got there against the Astros, oh, baby. I'm Mets all day. I'm going with the Mets. I could feel it, so I'd be very excited. Well, I know I don't get to ask you one in this rapid fire, but to close, if you'll oblige me, what do you think about who's going to make it to the World Series and win? And Frank, you too.
I'm right there with you. I think it's going to be the Astros and the Mets. I think the Mets are going to win it in 7 games. I think they're going to shock everybody, and I think if their pitching can stay healthy, I think they have the team to do it. Obviously, the Dodgers are going to be tough to beat too, but I guess maybe just being biased, I'm a Mets fan, but I just think really Buck Showalter's going to be the difference for them.
Well, I'm hopeful of it. There's about 30 players that have come through AAA Syracuse Mets that have an opportunity to do something special this year. A lot of those guys can. Frank, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm right along with you guys.
Make sure you.
I can't disregard the Dodgers though. I mean, the Dodgers are tough.
I know.
They are very tough. With pitching, I mean, I always go to pitching, and they got real good. And not saying the Mets don't,
Yeah.
but it could come down to those two. I hope they do face each other and the Mets win. That would be okay for me. I will take that.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say. I hate even saying the Astros name, but that could be who is going to be in the World Series, and I don't want to see it, obviously. But the Yankees they're just getting by now, and like I said, they get too many guys hurt that are key players that did help when they were up, at the time. But as a whole team, no, I don't see it happening. Their pitching staff definitely not. Really don't.
People underestimate the fact that the Yankees, obviously with all the success they've had over the years, but in recent times that rotation comes back to bite you in the butt. So this entire panel has pretty much said Astros and Mets. A little bit of Dodger, but Astros Mets. If it happens, I guess you heard it here first. So with that being said, for Frank DiPino, Mark Lukasiewicz, myself, Dan Tortora, for Danny Tome and the entire team here at the Wildcat Sports Pub, and for Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, which you have every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And every time we do these special pieces like Talk Around the Diamond, we appreciate you being here on YouTube.com, Facebook.com, and MixLR.com, all / Wake Up Call DT worldwide. I don't know how to say, I don't like saying goodbye, so I'll say see you later. I get to talk with them off the air, though. But we'll see you later on our live feed. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure, Dan.
Appreciate it. It was fun.
Thank you so much.